Shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Yuta Padakmalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki Jai. Shri Gauranitai ki Jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita ki Jai. Samaveta Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna. So continuing on our discussion of Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Last week we saw how Gopakumar, he made his way to Vaikuntha, how he was in Vrindavan, where he got the association of his spiritual master yet another time. And the spiritual master instructed him on the nuances of bhakti, especially about how to practice different types of devotional service, Navida Bhakti, including chanting, loudly chanting the holy name of the Lord in each of those processes. So as his bhakti matured, one day Gopakumar saw Krishna right in front of him, and as he was running towards him, calling out his name, "Oh Gopal," ready to embrace him, he falls down unconscious. And when he wakes up, he finds himself being carried on the Vaikuntha plane straight to Vaikuntha by the same Vishnu who he had met in Mahakalapura. So when Gopakumar finally arrives in the city of Vaikuntha, he was made to wait outside, and there Gopakumar could see different varieties of Vishnu coming, somewhere exhibiting their opulences, some were taking all the opulences, merging into their body and just walking in, simply like a humble beggars. Despite their mood, they all looked very opulent, very beautiful, so much so that Gopakumar, he mistook each one of them to be Vishnu himself. And then the Vishnu come out and they escort him into the city of Vaikuntha. And as they go past one gate, walk for a certain distance, they are met with another gate, and then the same process continues. The Vishnu again go seek the permission, and then they keep on going. And Gopakumar explains that as he went past each of those sentries, the gates, different gates of Vaikuntha, he could see the people are actually more beautiful. The opulences that were displayed was getting more and more grander, and finally he enters into the heart of Vaikuntha city. There he could see rows and rows and rows of palaces, but amidst all those different stars, there is one big moon-like palace towards which all the different palaces were facing as if to offer respects. And Gopakumar makes it out that that is where the Supreme Lord must be residing. And when the Vishnu bring him to a big assembly hall, there, right in front of his eyes, Gopakumar could see the Lord of Vaikuntha, Vaikuntapati, resting on his throne with his left hand being supported by a bolster and being very favorably served by his two divine consorts, Lakshmi and Dara, Sri Devi and Bhudevi. And Gopakumar, as he nears the Lord of Vaikuntha, he could also see Narada Muni offering different types of entertainment, and Lakshmi ji also giving nice refreshments for the Supreme Lord. Especially in this particular instance, supari it's given, like tambula. And the Supreme Lord was very blissfully chewing that. As he was chewing the tambula, Dara, she was holding the spittoon right next to him to catch hold of any Mahaprasad that will come her way. So this is the scene he sees. And as he continues to see the Supreme Lord, he also notices the other personalities like Sudarshana, assuming their human form. They stand with their folded palms right next to the Lord, offering words of praises. Even though Sudarshana was having a human form, his krita or crown was marked with the symbols of the chakra. So Gopakumar could easily identify that that is Sudarshana. So when Gopakumar realizes that I am finally in Vaikuntha, right in front of my own worshipable Lord, the Lord for whom he had waited for such a long time, chanting the secret mantra which his Guru had given, and for whom he had recently taken up active participation in loud glorification of the Lord through Sankirtana. When he realizes that, he calls out the Lord's name and he rushes to embrace him. But as he rushes to embrace him, the Vishnu Dudas who were there and other devotees, they hold him back. Because in Vaikuntha, everyone follows the rules and regulations very, very strictly. And when they see somebody coming from outside breaching that, they couldn't stand that, so they held him back. So now Gopakumar's heart was torn, because right in front of him is his Lord, but he can't go and he can't touch him, he can't have any kind of personal interaction with him at all. So he calls out the Lord's name and he faints. I don't know if you have experience fainting. I do have in my school days a few times. I remember once we were practicing for a march past as part of our sports day celebration. All I could see was I was standing there marching with everyone, and they made us stand in the sun. Slowly my eyes closed. Next thing I remember was I was on the ground and my teachers were around me sprinkling water. What happened during that time? When the time my eyes slowly closed to how I fell, how long I have been down, I don't know, nothing. So similarly here, Gopakumar, he faints, he realizes he is fainting, that's all he remembers. And he slowly regains his consciousness, hearing the voice of Supreme Lord Vishnu. Sanatana Goswami says, right from the time he fainted, Vishnu has been calling out his name. Oh my dear cowherd boy, please get up. Oh my dear cowherd boy, please get up. Please get up, like that. So he started to call out his name so many times, and slowly as he regains his consciousness, he could hear the sound of Lord Vishnu calling out his name. Slowly is regaining, and he could finally come to external consciousness. And as he comes to his external consciousness, Vishnu tells him, oh my dear cowherd boy, you have been very, very merciful and extremely kind to me. I have been waiting for you for such a long time. And every single time you took birth, I thought he will come to me this time. If not this time, okay, next time, and next time, and next time. I have been waiting for you for many, many births. And finally today you have shown me the greatest favor by coming to me. I was feeling so much separation from you that I myself had to transgress the laws of material nature which I had made. Prabhupada would often quote this verse, Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kauntaya jagat viparivartate. That this material nature is working directly under the supervision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's based on her order. This material creation is first of all brought into being and then destroyed again and again. So when Krishna creates this material world, he gives that power of attorney to Durga Devi. Durga means fort, and we are in Devi Dham. So here everything works based on her orders. So Krishna, after giving that power, he doesn't unnecessarily come and interfere with the laws of nature. Now, Supreme Lord, again, if you read Ishopanishad, it tells you a lot of different so-called contradictions. So on one hand, he has given that power, saying, I don't want to get involved in the material affairs. But here, Vishnu says, even though I had made that rule, for your purpose, because I was feeling so much pangs of separation from you, I myself transgressed the laws of material nature. How? By becoming his own spiritual master himself. And then he reveals for second time. First time he had heard it before, and now he had heard directly from the lotus lips of the Supreme Lord himself. So Vishnu says, I myself become your Guru, Jayanta, and I made you to be born in the village of Govardhana to give you the maximum opportunity to take up this path of bhakti so that I can meet you. And finally, I'm seeing you here. Now that you have come, please grace this place with your association. And when Gopakumar, when he hears all these words are nectar to his ears, suddenly he sees few other people who look very similar to him, wearing the dress of a cowherd boy. They all come, they all sing, chant and dance, and they encourage Gopakumar to pick up his flute, which he still carries. And Gopakumar narrates, when they encouraged me, I started to pick up this flute. And he's telling to the Mathura Brahmana, which means he's still holding the flute. Even after going there, even at the current time when the whole narration is happening, he says, this flute, I played with this flute for Supreme Lord of Vaikuntha. So he starts to play the flute, greatly pleasing the husband of Goddess of Fortune, Madhava. Now, Supreme Lord, he is the topmost flute player. Nobody can supersede him in anything. Nevertheless, Supreme Lord, he also loves the act of devotion, whichever way it's expressed. So, even though the cowherd boy, here in this case is Gopakumar, he plays the simple tunes as an outpour of his devotion, Supreme Lord still patiently sat down, heard, and he enjoyed the performance for which he is offering as his devotional service. So he lets him play. And towards end of that kirtana, Lakshmi ji gestures everyone to leave the place because it was time to serve lunch for the Supreme Lord. So everyone goes, but Gopakumar doesn't want to go because he had waited for such a long time to get this audience, and now he is right in front. He got to interact with the Lord from a distance, and that's all he had experienced so far. And suddenly time came for everyone to leave. Who would want to go? If you want to know that experience, I'm pretty sure you all would have done, especially on Janmashtami day. You come in the temple room and devotees who are doing the security seva, very thankless task, they ask you to leave, you don't want to go. And now imagine you are in Vaikuntha, and if they say, okay, everyone leave, who would want to leave? Nobody wants to go, so Gopakumar still stays there. But then Vaikuntha Vasis slowly tell him, we have to go out now. So Lakshmi ji, she would start to offer bhoga to the Supreme Lord based on his tastes and based on the varieties of spiritual pleasures that was available in Vaikuntha. So Lakshmi ji would manifest that, and she would personally serve the Supreme Lord along with Bhudevi or Dara. So as Gopakumar comes out, He is now again walking on the streets of Vaikuntha, and he feels slowly all the different opulences which he saw when he was standing outside the gate of Vaikuntha. He could see many residents of Vaikuntha arriving. Some came on airplane, got down. Some were dressed like warriors. They were entering into the city. And right in front of him, he could see them changing forms also in some instances. So when Gopakumar walks on the street, he could realize that he is now endowed with that power, and slowly that power is starting to manifest. In other words, as he was thinking to do something, things are starting to manifest. Even his form, his opulence is slowly starting to manifest. Gopakumar, he controlled it and he pushes it inside. He didn't want to manifest. He is happy just being a simple cowherd boy, even in Vaikuntha. But Gopakumar says he felt the spiritual ecstasy and he felt the surge of the spiritual potency deep within inside. How? At the beck and call of every Vaikuntha Vasi, all the opulence are ready to manifest. And they manifest it to different degrees based on the service which they want to offer to the Supreme Lord. So similarly, Gopakumar is also experiencing that potency slowly manifesting, but he kind of suppressed it. He still want to retain his simple self as the cowherd boy of Govardhana. So as he walks there, he could see how different devotees, they are endowed with so much different potency. Even though some manifest superior forms, some manifest inferior forms, some take the form of even animals, for example, in Vaikuntha, like hogs, some take form of a lion, some take form of cows, some take forms of different living beings. There is no envy or unnecessary competition between different devotees that because I take the form of a king, or I take the form of a servant, I take the form of a plant, because of that nobody was feeling inferior or superior. Because the whole idea there is everyone is given so much opulence and they are using that opulence based on their heart's desire to serve the Supreme Lord. In other words, whatever they are given by the Supreme Lord, they are using it simply to serve the Supreme Lord. And because of that, Gopakumar notices that there is no envy, there is no argument at all amongst the Vaikuntha-vasis. And then Gopakumar gets an opportunity to do some personal service to the Lord of Vaikuntha. He is given the opportunity to fan the Supreme Lord with chamar. So he starts to do that, and Vaikuntha Pati, which is Vishnu, he tells him to also play the flute. So now he gets two service, more personal service. One service where he can personally fan the Lord, another service wherein he can continue to entertain the Lord with his sweet flute playing. And this service continues. Gopakumar, while he enjoys his place here, he prays to his mind. He advises his mind, here is the Lord for whom we have been waiting for long. Now surrender to him fully. So one half of him, while it tries to convince himself, other half of him is still saying, but I still miss the sweet embraces and kisses of Lord Gopala. When Gopakumar was chanting the mantra, the Ishta Devata of the mantra, which is Lord Gopala himself, would sometimes come in his dream and he will embrace him, he would kiss him, he would play with him. And Gopakumar's heart yearns to have that level of intimate, playful friendship with the Supreme Lord, which is not at all possible here. Here, he was not even allowed to call out the name of the Lord so loudly. So, Gopakumar, he is again torn between these two emotions. On one hand, he has the Supreme Lord right in front of him, but on the other, his mood is still yearning to be in Vrajabhumi. While this dilemma goes on within his heart, he still continues and he expresses his devotion openly. He would call out, "Oh Krishna, oh Gopal." So when he starts to call out Krishna's name, glorifying the Supreme Lord Krishna's in his Vrindavan pastimes, the residents of Vaikuntha would sometimes circle around him and they would advise him differently. Some group of Vaikuntha Vasis would actually tell him that what you see here, the Supreme Lord in his manifestation along with his unlimited opulence, this is the original form of the Lord. And what he displayed in Vrindavan is just but a illusory display of his energy. So their opinion was the form of Vishnu is the topmost, and the form which he displayed as Krishna, playing with the cowherd boys, playing with gopis, playing with the calves, killing demons and everything, they are just an illusory display of his pastimes. So that is not superior, and that Gopakumar should focus. Kamsari, you can switch it off. And Gopakumar should instead focus on worshipping the Supreme Lord himself this way. There is other group of Vaikuntha Vasis who would say there is no harm in worshipping the Supreme Lord's pastimes as Brajendranandan Krishna performed in Vrindavan. In other words, they said this is the Supreme Lord who is the Lord of Vaikuntha, but he had performed other pastimes, one of them being that of a cowherd boy born of Nanda Baba and Yashoda Maharani. So there is no harm in glorifying that pastimes also. So this is the opinion of a certain group of Vaikuntha Vasis. But there are more elevated, matured devotees amongst the residents of Vaikuntha who said, no, everything which the Supreme Lord does is for his pleasure. He performed the pastimes of Krishna because that pleased him so much. Likewise, he performed the pastime of Narsingadev, Varahadev because that pleased him so much. And because everything is absolute in nature, everything is equally pleasurable to the Supreme Lord. So we should not distinguish between what is good and what is better. Everything is equally pleasurable for the Lord. So when Gopakumar hears arguments like that, his heart gets convinced, especially with the presentation of more mature devotees. So when he hears that, he becomes very happy. But still his heart is yearning to see his most dear Ishta Devata, form of Krishna. So in that mood, one day he goes to the palace of Vaikuntha, and there he sees Vishnu seated right in front of him. Remember, last week we were discussing Vishnu in his most youthful form. So when he sees him, he sees Vishnu as Vrajendranandan Krishna. He sees Lakshmi Ji as Srimati Radharani and Dara as Chandravali. And he feels very blissful because suddenly he sees right in front of him the entire Vaikuntha has transformed into Goloka Vrindavana itself. He could see calves, he could see cows, Govardhan, the forest of Vrindavan, everything manifested right in front of him. And then suddenly he realizes this is still Vaikuntha. So sometimes he would feel that experience as well. So one day he sees Supreme Lord leaving somewhere. He asks the devotees, where is he going? And nobody is ready to divulge more information because it was protected as a very confidential secret. And now he was also feeling pangs of separation because Lord of Vaikuntha is not to be seen by him. Only few confidential devotees know about him. And in that situation, while his heart was actually craving to see him, suddenly the Lord manifests. And then all distress which he had felt during the Lord's absence went away. So as he was going through this experience of, on one hand, trying to fully enjoy his time in Vaikuntha, trying to fully bask in the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So this is one side of his experience, but on the other side, his heart is still craving to associate with Madan Gopal. So while this is going on, he developed a certain moroseness, not to be confused with the kind of distress we experience in our day-to-day life. This is material distress. But what Gopakumar experienced is spiritual distress. So when he went through that emotion, Narada Muni approaches him. Narada Muni approaches him, places his hand on the head of Gopakumar and blesses him. Oh cowherd boy, this is Vaikuntha, the place where there is no anxiety. May I know the cause of your paleness, cause of your anxiety here, which is very unusual because this is a place where there is only bliss. Narada Muni, even though he knew the heart of Gopakumar, he wanted to start the conversation that way and allow Gopakumar to put forth questions. So Gopakumar then narrates his whole journey, expressing honestly to Narada Muni how he craves to see Krishna. So when Narada Muni hears that, he tells him, first of all, he asks him to come close. When do you ask somebody to come close? When you are going to say something very confidential. So Narada Muni asks Gopakumar to come close, and he tells him the pastime of Krishna in Vrindavana, the pastime of Krishna dealing with the Gopas and Gopis, they are all very confidential. How do you expect them to be revealed in Vaikuntha, where the Supreme Lord's opulence is in fullest display? In other words, one whose mind is fully filled with Aishwarya Bhav can't see the sweet pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. When Vasudeva carries baby Krishna from the prison in Mathura all the way to Gokula, at that time Yashoda Maharani had already given birth to twins. There is baby Krishna and there is baby Yogamaya also. When Vasudeva goes with Krishna close to Yashoda Maharani to swap the baby, he couldn't see. There is already one Krishna who is lying right next to Yashoda Maharani. Why? Because his mood is in Aishwarya Bhav, mood of awe and reverence. So even Vasudeva, being the father of Krishna, he couldn't see Vrajendranandan Krishna who was right there. He was holding his Krishna, Dwaraka Krishna, with him. He could see Yogamaya, but he couldn't see Vrajendranandan Krishna, who was also born as a twin with Yogamaya. So he places this baby Krishna there, and this baby Krishna becomes one with Vrajendranandan Krishna, because he is the source of all incarnations anyway, on expansions. So two Krishna become one. He picks up Yogamaya and he leaves. So Narada Muni, revealing the confidential knowledge here, says only those who are endowed with a very special prema bhakti, only they can see the Lord in his Vrindavan pastimes. And because in Vaikuntha, the Supreme Lord's opulence is in full display, Aishwarya opulence is in full display. Vrindavan is also opulent, it's a different types of opulence. It's in full display. To see the sweet pastimes of Krishna here is not possible. So he consoles Gopakumar that you be satisfied, understanding that it is the same Lord who you have been meditating on as Krishna. It's the same Lord here, but he is worshipped in his full opulence here. So you be satisfied. And at that time, Gopakumar, he thanks Narada Muni for giving him instructions. And then Gopakumar realizes that this is a good opportunity for him to put forth questions to Narada Muni. And he asks Narada Muni a stream of questions. Narada Muni, when he hears these questions, he becomes very happy to see the mood of Gopakumar, and then he starts to answer them one after the other. There are different topics in which Gopakumar puts forth these questions to Narada Muni. First question is about the different forms of the associates of Vishnu in Vaikuntha. As I said, there are many devotees who take the form of trees, plants, cows, hogs, lions. Some take the form of Vishnu himself. Some take the form of a simple servant. So he asks him, what are these different varieties? Narada Muni says, the devotees, they like to serve the Supreme Lord in a certain way. Whichever way they want to serve the Supreme Lord gives them that potency. And because of that, same devotee would at one point be serving as a tree, but the same devotee, if they see the need to serve, they think serving the Supreme Lord may be nice in a certain way, they go and change their form completely. So we are given a convertible form in spiritual world. Even in Vaikuntha, what to speak of Goloka Vrindavana. So even in Vaikuntha, devotees take different forms depending on whatever service that they are doing. Now because the sole purpose here is not to show off one's own opulence, there is no envy or competition amongst the different residents of Vaikuntha. So Narada Muni explains that depending on the mood, depending on the desire of the worshipper, the Supreme Lord gives them the potency with which they manifest. And the Supreme Lord enjoys the different services that are offered by each one of these residents of Vaikuntha. The mood of Vaikuntha Vasis is also not to compete with each other, not to go ahead of the pack and to be singled out and given the credit. That's not the mood of Vaikuntha Vasis at all. Some, based on the service which they like to do, they like to be in the presence of the Supreme Lord all the time. So some, on the other hand, they like to do only background services. Same ways, if our spiritual master comes here, there will be some devotees who will always be with them. There will be some who may see their spiritual master maybe just once or twice. That's all they would do. Most of their services would be at the back end. Who is superior? Both are superior. So Narada Muni says, depending on the services, sometimes some people are in the physical proximity and some people are a little farther away. However, externally, if you want to understand, you can say this is more closer and this is little far. This is more superior and this is far in terms of hierarchy. He says mentally you can understand if you want to do it that way. However, everyone is same here. It's not that one person wanted to go close to Vishnu and Vishnu said, no, you have to stay far away and serve me. No. One devotee goes close to Vishnu to serve because that's what the devotee likes to do. And one devotee wants to stay far because that's what that devotee wants to do. So by choice, they take the positions. But externally, if you come, you may see this person is offering more confidential service than the other person. But Narada Muni says in Vaikuntha, there is no such distinction. And then Narada Muni proceeds to answer the next question. And that's about manifestation of different forms of the Lord. Because by this time, Gopakumar had seen many manifestations. He saw Vaman Dev, Yagya Purusha, Sahasra Shirsha. He saw that. He went to Mahakalapura. He saw Shiva. Now he's seeing Vaikuntha. In Bhuloka also he has seen different Bindu Madhava, Jagannath, Madan Gopal. So many different forms he has seen. So the question was, what are these different manifestations and why does the Supreme Lord manifests in so many different ways? And to which Narada Muni answers that Supreme Lord, he manifests different forms based on his mood, but more importantly, he manifests a certain form to give pleasure to the devotees. And even though it's one single Lord who is taking multiple forms, sometimes as Varaha, sometimes as Narasingha, sometimes as Hayagriva, sometimes as Matsya, Kurma, so on and so forth. Each one of the form he takes is simply to reciprocate with his devotees, and the devotees like to see the Lord in that form, and because of that the Supreme Lord obliges and he happily manifests that particular form. Now here he says something interesting. Even though the Supreme Lord takes so many forms, if we go and satisfy even one form, every other form gets automatically satisfied. Sometimes we have this doubt. Let's say you go to a temple of Varahadev. How much should I offer a prayer? If I offer prayer to Varahadev, firstly, is Krishna going to be satisfied? We have that doubt. And secondly, is this the most highest form of worship, or is it only a part worship? Krishna is still Swayam Bhagavan. I am only offering respects to only one expansion of the Supreme Lord. Is this kind of spiritual, in spiritual context, is this slightly inferior? Very common question devotees have. Narada Muni gives the answer here. He says, because the Supreme Lord is one single person, Hete Chamsa Kalapamsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. From him comes all these different unlimited incarnations. And even though, depending on some are direct expansions, some are expansion of expansion, and there is Swayam Bhagavan Krishna himself, but then from Krishna also there are so many different unlimited expansions of different Krishna. You can read Chaitanya Charitamrita. So which is superior? Narada Muni says you can go to any form of the Lord and you can offer the worship. And if you satisfy even one form of the Lord, all other forms get automatically satisfied. Which means today we are celebrating Shivaratri in Sydney, or tonight. Shivaratri is the marriage anniversary day of Shiva and Parvati. So on Shivaratri, for example, we can please Lord Shiva by doing Harinam Sankirtan, by chanting about Krishna, by doing things which pleases Lord Shiva. Now when we do that, will only Lord Shiva be pleased? Only Mother Parvati be pleased? No. Radha Gopinath also will be pleased, because Mother Parvati, after all, she is expansion of Srimati Radharani. And Shiva, again, expansion of Gopinath himself. So whichever form of Vishnu we come across, whichever expansion of the Supreme Lord we come across, we can go and offer our respects. And Narada Muni says, simply pleasing one form automatically pleases every other form. And Narada Muni will touch on that later also. We'll come to that. So Narada Muni says, but the Supreme Lord's, the reason for Supreme Lord manifesting these different pastimes is only for one purpose, and that is to satisfy and reciprocate with the devotion of his devotees who like to see the Lord, serve the Lord in a certain way. To facilitate that, he manifests these different forms. And then Narada Muni starts to explain about Mother Lakshmi Ji. So Supreme Lord has got all these different opulences, he expands. Lakshmi Ji also shares in his glories. In other words, she also manifests in a way suitable to serve each one of these different forms. She always resides in the chest of the Supreme Lord. That's why he is known as Sri Nivas. Meaning is the abode of Sri Devi. So he is Sri Nivas. So she is manifested in his heart, but she expands herself also. Last week we touched on one form of Lakshmi Ji who usually bestows material opulence to people, and she is known as Chanchala, not the one who is residing in Vaikuntha who Gopakumar is seeing now. She is always remaining there in the chest of the Supreme Lord, and she sees who is coming to serve her Lord and she blesses them. She is always eternally present there. But Chanchala, who came out of the churning of the milk ocean, people usually offer her prayers simply for getting material wealth. She bestows that. She sees whoever is using that wealth to serve Vishnu, she blesses them more. But if she sees people neglect Vishnu, she moves. That's why she is known as Chanchala. She doesn't stay in one place steady. Not because she doesn't want to, simply because she doesn't want to bless. She doesn't want to associate with people who are materialistic. So this particular form of Lakshmi Ji, Narada Muni says, usually the people who are worshipping the Supreme Lord, whose goal is to go to Vaikuntha, they usually don't worship this form of Lakshmi Ji, but they worship the Lakshmi Ji of Vaikuntha. Because this form of Lakshmi Ji is usually worshipped only for giving material wealth. They are not interested. And Lakshmi Ji also expands herself into Parvati. If you recollect, when Narada Muni goes to see Lord Shiva, we saw in the first part of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, at that time the glorification of Lakshmi Ji came. Then Lord Shiva tells to Narada Muni, actually there is, and he calls Narada Muni, puts his arm around Narada Muni's shoulder and he says, come with me. And he almost whispers, actually there is one devotee who is more greater than even Lakshmi Ji. At that time, if you remember, Sanatana Goswami says the reason why Shiva takes Narada Muni away is because he didn't want Parvati to hear that conversation, because Parvati is very close friend of Lakshmi Ji and she doesn't want anyone glorify anyone greater than Lakshmi Ji, like that. So Lakshmi, she is also expanding herself as Parvati. She also expands as Yogamaya. She also expands as all the different Shakti Tattva. And she bestows the blessings. So whatever that devotion which people see, Prabhupada would often quote this verse in Bhagavad Gita, Mahatmanastu Mampartha Daivim Prakritim Ashritaha. So this is one verse which, rather the only verse that talks about Srimati Radharani in Bhagavad Gita. How when one takes to the shelter of Krishna, their life is directly being guided by Srimati Radharani. She gives opportunity to do service, she gives devotee association, she gives the spiritual enthusiasm, she manifests the different varieties of service. Everything comes from her. So Lakshmi Ji also manifests everything because she is the topmost worshipper of Krishna. Whatever that she does is for service of Krishna. So if we also want to serve Krishna, then we have to go directly under the control of Lakshmi Ji. We have to go directly under the control of Srimati Radharani. That's why cleaning is very important. It's given she cleans. So whenever the task comes for cleaning, mature devotees, pure devotees, they'll always take a humble position of cleaning. Aindra Prabhu, the most famous Kirtan singer, Kirtaniya in ISKCON, he used to go clean the toilets in Vrindavana ashram. People usually glorify about his singing, they don't know about his Vaishnava Seva. He used to do. You can hear even Madhav Prabhu actually speaks about that. I have heard even other devotees speak about that. Because cleaning the Vaikuntha, that is one of the services of Sri Devi. So when we see cleaning, we should not see anything negative, which means we should be competing to cleaning, not compete to sit in Vyasasana and give class. That we can do. In fact, our action itself will do that. But the more we progress in bhakti, more we should understand that we need to go into that mood of Lakshmi Ji and we need to compete there. Otherwise, memorizing verses, reciting verses, or just being kind of sitting in the pedestal and glorifying, that is okay. That is normally attractive for everyone. Whereas cleaning, for new people, it won't be. Because they would think naturally with the material consciousness which they are still afflicted with, they would still think this is inferior. Even if somebody comes for Abhishek, it's natural for people to think, oh, those who are serving the deities, they are superior. They are not. Narada Muni, that's what he's explaining here. But who can do the cleaning? Not the people who come new, because their ego won't actually let them to do that service. Which means who is capable of doing the cleaning. Only the most humble, most elevated, and most advanced devotees can clean. Nobody else can do. As I said, we shouldn't gauge our progress based on how shastrically we are becoming very eloquent. That is okay. What is most important is how much we are imbibing in the mood. Same way, preaching. Who can do the preaching? Preaching means we need to take Krishna consciousness to new people. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order, Prabhupada says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has this anxiety. Even Supreme Lord has anxiety, he says. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I have so many fruits here. How many people can I distribute it? I need help. So when he says that, Haridas Thakur and Nityananda Prabhu, they come and pacify the Lord. My Lord, Srivas Thakur, they come and pacify the Lord. My Lord, don't worry, we will help you. Now we can say, didn't they know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Lord? No. But his mood is like that of a devotee, so they are assisting. So part of our service is sometimes we have to give confidence. One part of our service is also to remain humble. Now when to remain humble and when to actually exhibit our confidence, only mature devotees know. I'll give you one example. When Sugriva sends Hanuman to go find where Sita is being kept, Mother Sita is being kept, Sugriva actually forms 4 parties, sends one to north, south, east, west. To south party, he puts Angada as the leader and he sends Hanuman and Jambavan to assist him. Lord Ram, he had a lot of faith in Hanuman. That's why of all the people, different parties he went, Lord Ram gave his ring only to Hanuman because Lord Ram had full faith that Hanuman would be able to find the whereabouts of Mother Sita. So Hanuman comes to south and finally Jatayu's brother Sampati reveals to this party that Ravana had abducted Mother Sita and he had kept her imprisoned in Lanka. And Lanka is about 100 yojanas away. So Jambavan asks around amongst the monkeys, who can jump? Some monkeys, they say, we can go 10 yojana, 20 yojana, 30 yojana. When the turn came for Angad, who is son of Vali, Angad says, I can jump 100 one way. But second way, I'm not 100% certain because I don't know whether I'll be fatigued by then. So everyone was looking. Hanuman was also looking. At that time, Jambavan, he encourages Hanuman, revealing about his celestial powers. So when Jambavan reveals that celestial powers to Hanuman, Hanuman then remembers all the boons he had received. And then Hanuman says at that point, because you have to imagine the mood of the party. It was not long ago when they have all lost hope. At one point, Angad says, what's the point in returning back with negative news to Lord Ram? Because when we go and share this news that we couldn't find, Lord Ram will anyway leave his body, Lakshman will leave his body. What's the point? Let us all quit our body here itself. They were preparing, and it's at that point Sampati comes and reveals. So at this point, Hanuman sees the morale is still little low. So to boost the morale, to boost the inspiration and enthusiasm of all the monkeys there, Hanuman, at that point, if you see, he boasts of his prowess. He says, I can inundate the whole world by splashing all the ocean water. Can you believe this? Sometimes you may be playing splashing water sport. Could be in a swimming pool, river, or maybe in a beach. And the whole purpose is you want to completely deluge the person with the full water so they get a full abhishek of it. Hanuman, to give an idea to them, he says, I can splash the water of the ocean and give a tsunami effect, and I can inundate, not just to make the whole world wet. He says I can inundate the whole world, which means by splashing water, he can completely submerge the whole world underwater. He says that's his power. And he also says when Garuda is actually flying, as he is flying, Garuda itself flies very fast. Hanuman says, when Garuda flies that fast, my prowess is I can do circumambulation of Garuda non-stop 1,000 times. Imagine, that means simultaneously Hanuman also has to match his speed, but also go around. That means his speed has to be much more faster. How fast? Garuda is going like lightning speed. He also need to go in lightning speed, and he has to also go around like this. Hanuman says, that's my power. Then Hanuman says, we know how tall Mount Sumeru is, how big it is. And he says in one breath, I can actually go around Mount Sumeru 1,000 times. He says like that. So when all the monkeys, when they actually hear that, they feel very rejuvenated, thrilled actually, to see someone in their midst who is endowed with so much power. So when the morale is down, at that time he exudes confidence. Same Hanuman crosses over, goes to Ashoka Vatika, and we know what he did there. Kills Akshay Kumar, son of Ravana, destroys the army, thousands of soldiers in no time. And finally, before bidding farewell to Mother Sita raises a doubt. She says, you are one monkey, so you have crossed 100 yojanas effortlessly. Well, and you are saying Lord Ram has got only an army of monkeys. So will anyone be able to cross that water and come to save me? So when she asked that, at that time Hanuman says that my position in that army of monkeys is very, very low. And he justifies it. He says the reason why I'm saying my position is very, very low is, Hanuman says, you are the daughter of a king, Janaka, who would usually be sent as a messenger, not somebody higher up, correct? Somebody running errands here, there. Usually we see people who are good for nothing, okay, go here, buy something. So Hanuman at that point of time, he says that to Mother Sita. Now if you look at Hanuman's intelligence, in both the places he is giving hope. He is bringing, or he is infusing life in the heart of the listeners. On one hand, he is actually telling to all the monkeys who are actually physically very weak. He is telling them there that I can do this. But when he comes to Mother Sita, at that time he is telling them, he is not boasting, because if he boasts here, Mother Sita would think, okay, this monkey is so powerful he can come, but what about others? So here he plays the other way around. He tells to her, I am the most weakest. And all other monkeys are so many more powerful. What's the proof? See, I am a messenger here. But he infuses confidence in Mother Sita by downplaying his prowess here. Understand? So we should not think sitting in Vyasasana and speaking is the greatest service. No, that's not how humility is defined. When we practice bhakti, when we surrender to the philosophy, we have to surrender 100%. Unfortunately, we put our own spin on things and cheat ourselves, and in the process we get frustrated that we are not progressing in bhakti. Prabhupada says in one place, spirituality means to accept things as they are. That means the place where confidence need to be shown, you have to show. If that's what's gonna bring enthusiasm in devotees' lives. And the place where you have to show humility, you have to show humility there. That's not the place where you to boast your confidence. Unfortunately, we do it the other way around. When it comes to claiming credit, we are ready to sit in Vyasasana and give class. But when it comes to taking up responsibility to do any service, we say, oh, I'm very humble, unqualified. So that hypocritical behavior we need to let go. And we have to understand, genuinely, we have been with Radha Gopinath for so many years. And even recently we were reading, when Mother Sati, she asks Lord Shiva to go with her to attend the Daksha Yagya. At that time Shiva says, there's no point in going, he'll only offend and your heart will break even more. Better let us both not go. But Mother Sati, she is in a dilemma. She looks at Lord Shiva like a little girl and she just leaves. Now when she leaves alone, Lord Shiva doesn't say a word. He just comes and looks at her leaving. Deep in his heart, Bhagavatam says, he was concerned, yeah, what can she do? Whether if she's here, that is also is destructive for her because she can't be peaceful here. If she goes there, she'll get insulted. That is also not conducive for her. What could she do in her helpless situation? So he was sympathizing with her. And Prabhupada writes, so when he looks at her, she just goes alone. And simply, when the associates of Lord Shiva, Prabhupada actually writes in the purport, when they look at Lord Shiva just glancing at her, that's all. They could immediately understand the heart of Lord Shiva, and then they assemble in millions and they escort her. They bring Nandi, make her seated on Nandi like a queen of all Bhutaganas, Shivaganas, and then they go in millions flanking her. They give her parrot, they hold umbrella for her, befitting her position as the consort of the Supreme Lord Shiva, like that it's given. So Prabhupada says the servants, pure servants, elevated servants always know the heart of the master, even without master saying anything. Even one single word. Tamal Krishna Maharaj speaks about it, my Guru Maharaj speaks about it. When Prabhupada was seated in the room, if he just looks at the fan, servant will know. Immediately they'll go down on the fan, not even a word spoken. And if it's windy, Prabhupada will just look at the window, just like that. That's it, once. And the servant will immediately go close, which means they'll be very, very attentive, waiting for the beck and call. When it comes to offering service to Krishna, that's what our mood should be. The time when it is actually needed to take up a more confidence-giving role, we have to do. And that may be making announcement. That may be, as I said, giving class. That may be book distribution. But unfortunately, our mood is, when it comes to book distribution, we I'm very unqualified. Actually, we are not unqualified. Our ego is just more. If our ego is more, we can't do book distribution. Or could be fundraising. Could be cooking. Could be just talking to guests. At that time, there is a difficulty there, 100%. But because we don't want to take up that little austerity, we give that excuse saying, I'm very humble. Actually, we are not humble. We would like to be in the limelight all the time. And that is why we say, no, I'm humble. Because our ego is not allowing us to go embrace the service. That's all. So if we are really honest with ourselves, then we would be able to do anything for Sri Radha Gopinath. Coming back to this point, pure devotees. Why did pure devotees take different forms? Simply to please the Lord, because they know this is what the Lord wants. Why did the Supreme Lord take multiple forms? Because he knows this is what the devotees want to see me as. Srimati Radharani, Lakshmi Ji, why do they manifest so many different varieties of ecstasy, so many different varieties of service? For the same reason, This is how Supreme Lord can enjoy to the maximum. And then the point comes to about the fourth question, about Krishna himself. Narada Muni says, Krishna has got unlimited different opulences, but the prema bhakti, Krishna reserves it. He doesn't give it very easily. Why? Because for Krishna to give that prema bhakti to others means Krishna had to compromise on his position as Swarat. Because Krishna is Bhaktavatsala and Krishna is also Swarat. They both are completely conflicting roles. There is a conflict of interest there. Because if Krishna gives pure bhakti to someone, what effectively that puts Krishna in is to be in a position of a subordinate to the other person, which is directly contradicting his position as the most independent person. Swarat. So Narada Muni says, and because him giving pure bhakti to others means he had to go under the control of them, so Krishna doesn't give it that easy. And Narada Muni takes it further and he says, but what makes Krishna more endearing, more sweet is, despite his position as the Supreme Lord, he goes against his natural qualities, serving his devotees. And that contradicting position endears him to the heart of his devotees. And he says that quality which he actually shows, for example, Yadbibeti Swayambhayam, it's given that like the fear personified is fearful of Krishna, scared of Krishna. But the same, which means Krishna has to be even more powerful, right? But the same Krishna is running away from Mother Yashoda. So there is a contradiction there. Narada Muni says that is very attractive. When Krishna acts as if he is against his nature. When Krishna acts against his nature, against his normal nature. Not in a negative sense, but in a positive sense. Wherein the position where Krishna could have easily controlled, he takes a humble position and he allows his devotees to control him. So Narada Muni says this particular quality is very, very attractive to his devotees. So when Gopakumar hears all of this, he feels thrilled and he repeatedly offers his respects to Narada Muni. And Gopakumar asks one question to Narada Muni about deity worship. Narada Muni is considered as the original spiritual master of deity worship. Why? Because Narada Muni wrote Narada Pancharatra, and that is the most defining Shastra, where he says the different nuances, different principles of how we should worship a deity. So when Gopakumara asks Narada Muni about deity worship, Narada Muni immediately embraces Gopakumar and he feels very happy. Narada Muni starts his answers saying, if someone in this world even worship a blade of grass, understanding that this is energy of the Supreme Lord and Supreme Lord is also present in this, Narada Muni says such a person will go to Vaikuntha. If a person even hears the faintest sound of the holy name of the Lord, such a person will never take birth again. Now, why does Narada Muni says these two? To drive home the third point which he is about to say. Narada Muni says, if somebody worships a blade of grass, understanding that this is manifestation of Supreme Lord's potency, that person will go back to Vaikuntha. A person who even hears the faintest sound of the holy name of the Lord, they will never take birth again. What to speak of someone who worships the very form of the Lord, in which the Supreme Lord himself has manifested, and to whom the person dedicates one's life to? What to speak of their destination? In other words, in a colloquial sense, we can say, what a silly question, like that. Or need I say more? So Narada Muni first of all establishes the potency of deity worship by comparing to even worshipping a blade of grass. Even that level of worship, one person will go to Vaikuntha. So if somebody worships a form of the Lord in accordance with the Shastra and in a way how Shastra instructs us to do, Narada Muni says they personally associate with the Lord, and such a person will go back to the spiritual world, and he says right in the same life as they are worshipping. They will go more and more dearer, and they will simply continue their worship as soon as they come to Vaikuntha. So worshipping deities, Narada Muni emphasizes more in this concluding section of this conversation. You will see. And Narada Muni says there are some places where deity worship is said as inferior, and Narada Muni qualifies why it is inferior. He says that's not about the worship of the Supreme Lord in a very authorized way. This is superior. On the other hand, he says there are some instances when people concoct their own forms, their own imaginative forms, and they worship those imaginative forms for material benediction. And Narada Muni says, in Shastras, in some place, if you come across deity worship as inferior or people of less intelligence like that, he says it refers to them, not to those worshippers of forms of Hari. He says they directly associate with the Lord through deity worship. And Narada Muni says even these people who worship the Supreme Lord in a very concocted form for material benefit, even if they continue to do, over a period of time, that little faith alone, Krishna will, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, whichever form one takes, through that form, Krishna says, he will bless the worshipper. In fact, Krishna himself says, he will steady the faith. First, he enters into the heart of the worshipper, even for a total concocted form. And he will make them work towards, or make them progress towards getting there. Even if it's a demigod, for example. So even to get attraction to a demigod, let's take a step back. Akarsha iti Krishna. Krishna means one who attracts everyone, including himself. Demigods don't have the potency to attract other living entities. They simply don't have the potency, which means Indra doesn't have the potency to look attractive. If Indra has to look attractive for a devotee, Krishna has to enter into the heart of Indra, make him attractive. So Krishna is the one who initiates the worship, first of all. So after he makes Indra attractive, in this example, then Krishna will then enter into the heart. He is already there anyway. When I say enter into, not the first time, he is already there. In the heart of Indra, he had to give the potency to Indra to, first of all, look attractive. Because Indra alone cannot attract a jiva to worship him. Now Krishna in the heart of the worshipper, he has to now steady the faith, deepen the faith of this particular jiva towards Indra. That also Krishna does. And then Krishna again, role again changes here. Krishna within the heart of Indra, he needs to inspire Indra to bless this person. And he needs to give potency to Indra to bless this person. Because Indra can't bless anyone on his own. Indra also goes by rule book. If somebody has done a particular worship, if somebody has followed the rule book to the dot, yes. So Indra's role is more like a bank cashier. If somebody gives proper credentials, and if their Lakshmi is in the bank account, then they are allowed to give. If a bank cashier, teller gives the money on his own, he'll be put in jail. He doesn't have the authority. Indra, and for that matter, all the demigods' position is like that. They don't have the authority to bestow whatever boons that they actually like. It's not. The person who is worshipping, they need to tick certain box. They need to fulfill certain criteria. On the other hand, for Krishna can offer anything to anyone at any point of time. So coming back to this point, Narada Muni says, even if somebody is worshipping a concocted form of the Lord, such a person's faith will, if they hold on to that process, eventually over a period of time, by the association of devotees, their heart will get pure and they will also turn towards worshipping authorized forms of Hari. In other words, Narada Muni says, whoever does deity worship, they are in a very, very favorable position. Whether you do authorized form, you are already dealing with the Lord. Even if you do unauthorized form, he says, and if you are, even if you are worshipping only for some material benefit, still Narada Muni says this will still put them on an auspicious path by coming in contact with the devotees. Now, why is concoctive form condemned? Narada Muni gives a very beautiful reason. He says Krishna's heart is millions of oceans deep. One ocean deep, Marina Trench, that itself is scary. You watch movie like Meg 2, Meg 3, I don't know how many Megs they make. Marina Trench is considered the deepest, so many kilometers down. So recently I saw a video of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji going underwater, Dwaraka, to worship. And I was thinking, how merciful is Radha Gopinath? You don't need to go underwater. Just walk if you are nearby living. If you are far, just drive. Same Lord is available here. You don't need to go underwater. So Radha Gopinath is more merciful. I could appreciate mercy of Prabhupada. Prabhupada made Radha Gopinath so accessible. You have to just drive the car and you are there. You don't need to go underwater. When Karna, when he was shooting arrow towards Arjuna, Shalya was his charioteer. Shalya tells Karna to shoot Arjuna and follow it up with the other arrow. First thing Shalya says is to aim for Arjuna's heart. Karna is so proud and he says, why heart? I'll just aim straight for the head. And Shalya wants him. Shalya is Karna's charioteer. He tells him, no, Krishna is there. I'm telling you, please do this. And just to be safe, shoot that arrow and then immediately follow it up with the other arrow. Karna is too proud to listen to any advice. First thing is, he shoots only one arrow. Second thing, instead of aiming for heart, he aims for the head. Guess what Krishna does? He drives the chariot. Normally we'll think Krishna didn't touch the weapon and anything. If you look at how many rules Krishna bent for Arjuna, we'll understand who the real man of the match is. And there is even one other pastime where Barbaric actually says it's only Krishna who killed everyone in Kurukshetra war. So Krishna drives the chariot. He sees the arrow coming to the head of Arjuna and he knew Arjuna can't counter that. So what does Krishna do? Krishna drives the chariot into the earth. It's given in Mahabharata like that. Have you ever come across anyone? Like recently, one of the building, they were doing drilling tunnel underneath, but about almost like 10 meters of an existing building's base started to cave in to the ground. And then they had to put so much tons of concrete to make it up. I don't know where they are. So they have temporarily stopped drilling of the tunnel under that building. Krishna coolly drives he sees the arrow coming and he coolly drives the chariot in earth, under the earth. He just goes like that. And that's how he saves Arjuna. So, Krishna's heart is not just one ocean. Millions of ocean deep, Narada Muni says. And because Krishna's heart is millions of oceans deep, because his potency is unlimited, Narada Muni says there is simply no way to understand Krishna by speculation. Very, very strong argument. Just like you sometimes hear, I'll give you one example. You hear morning conversations of Srila Prabhupada or some room conversations or Prabhupada talking to some reporters, for example. They would ask some question and you pause there at that point of time just to hear the question of the person. You pause and then you think what Prabhupada would potentially say. Okay. And then you continue to play. Prabhupada will always be one step ahead. In other words, you can never speculate what Prabhupada is going to say next. I used to, like spiritual game if you like, I used to do that. Other thing I used to do, still now also sometimes I do is, you read the verse, you read the translation. Before reading the purport, I'll read and I'll think, okay, now Prabhupada, what is he going to say in the purport? So you'll have a certain viewpoint. This is what Prabhupada would actually say. You read it, Prabhupada will outperform your expectation. Reason why I am saying is, we can't understand our Guru. We can never understand. Shastras say, Shiva Tattva, Radha Tattva and Guru Tattva. Nobody can understand fully. Now, Radha Tattva nobody can understand. Shiva Tattva nobody can understand. Guru Tattva nobody can understand. What about Krishna Tattva? Don't even think beyond anyone's. That's why he is Adokshaja. That is a name. Name says it all. One who cannot be approached by any gross or subtle sense. So Narada Muni says, because Krishna's heart is millions of ocean deep, there is no point in trying to speculate about him. It's simply not possible. Then Narada Muni gives a final instruction and he says, whatever that happens in the heart, in fact, I'll quote exactly Narada Muni's words. Narada Muni says, Supreme Lord Krishna knows the movement of the heart of his devotees. Amazing, right? Normally, if you take our heart, if you take a wave, physically you will see. What do they call that? ECG, electrocardiogram. In movies have you seen, and then that means gone. So it just goes. That's the movement of the heart on a physical level. Pacemaker, sino-auricular node. Okay, lubbed up. So you go. This is happening on a physical level. On a more deeper level, we have a certain emotions. There is a wave of emotion that's happening, right? Like, for example, even our thoughts. Sometimes it thinks this, sometimes we think high, sometimes we do low, again high, again low. This is again material thoughts only. But when in the heart of the devotees means, here it specifically refers to the spiritual thoughts. Narada Muni says, Krishna knows the movement of his devotees' hearts. And then he reveals, Vishnu also knows about what's going on in his heart. And by the way, he was the one who asked me to speak to you. Narada Muni finally reveals, actually Vishnu is the one who sent me to talk to you. And that's why I'm talking to you. And in another, thinking about the movement, one Acharya writes, we are talking about the movement of our heart, Krishna knows that. But Krishna's movement, nobody knows. One Acharya writes, Krishna's activities at every point will be like that of a snake. It will never be in straight line. Have you seen a snake moving? It will bend its body, at the same time it will go in a certain, cross path. It never goes straight. So one Acharya says, Krishna's movement is also like that. Nobody can predict what Krishna is going to do. So Narada Muni here, he reveals that Vishnu knew what was going on in your heart, so he sent me. And that's why I'm here. So Narada Muni, then he says, you should now visit one other region of Vaikuntha called Ayodhya. And from Ayodhya, after you take blessings of Lord Ram, you will then go to Dwaraka. And Dwaraka resembles in many ways Mathura as well. So, and Narada Muni also says, because you are only going from one part of Vaikuntha to another, you don't need to take any special permission from Vishnu. And by the way, it was only Vishnu who sent me, so you can take this as the instruction from Vishnu and you can make your way. So when Gopakumar hears that, he jumps up and down in joy, his heart leaps in joy, and he pays obeisances to Narada Muni, and he leaves. It's in the same Vaikuntha region, but he leaves towards Ayodhya, also known as Koshala. So he leaves towards Ayodhya, crossing a forest, and as he crosses the forest, he sees a group of monkeys jumping from one branch to the other, calling out Ram's name. And then as he continues to walk, suddenly he is surrounded by a group of monkeys. What do you think monkeys will do? They try to take the flute away from him. So when Gopakumar sees all of them, and when they are trying to take flute from him, at that time he sees a group of personalities who come and they act in a very, very civilized way. They come, take him, escort him towards Ayodhya, and first he meets Bharata, who is with Shatrughna, flanked by Sugriva, Hanuman and other personalities. So when Gopakumar sees Bharata, he immediately starts to chant the holy name of Lord Ram, because Narada Muni, before he left, Narada Muni instructs him how he should worship Lord Ram and how he should offer prayers, how he should glorify Lord Ram, Mother Sita, Lakshman, as well as Hanuman. So he teaches him a mantra and he starts to recite, paying obeisances. As soon as he does that, Bharata closes his ear saying, I'm only a servant. Does that ring a bell? Even when he went to Vaikuntha, when he tried to glorify everyone as Vishnu, everyone was also doing the same. I'm only a servant. So Bharata does that, and then Hanuman takes him to the city, inner precincts of Ayodhya, and straight to Ayodhya's palace. And as he walks in there, he sees Supreme Lord Ram seated on his throne with majesty, holding a bow, and to his sides were Mother Sita and Lakshman, and everyone glorifies him. At that time, when Lord Ram sees him, he welcomes Gopakumar. When Gopakumar sees Lord Ram, he starts to pay repeated obeisances. Lord Ram tells him, oh my dear friend, please don't do that. I have been waiting for you for such a long time. One point we should understand is, our relationship is with Krishna eternally. However, it is the same Krishna who manifests in so many different forms. So when we read this section, one take-home message for us is, we can have that emotional relationship with any form of the Lord, because through that form of Lord, Krishna is still blessing us. Ayendra Prabhu in one lecture on Shaligram Shila, he says, you take one Shaligram Shila, you can worship that Shaligram Shila as Narsingha, Varaha, Matsya, Kurma, any form. And that Shaligram Shila will reciprocate you with that. That's why you go to some devotee's altar, you may not find much here. You go to, let's say, Mayapur, Vrindavan, so many devotees have. Some Shila will look like Narsingha Dev only. You ask them, is this Narsingha Dev? They say like, no, Madhava. Like, Madhava? He looks a little Ugra. So other form you look, is this Sudarshana? They say, no, this is Matsya. So Ayendra Prabhu says, you can take any Shaligram Shila and you can worship him in whichever way you want. Which means you can worship him as Narsingha. Not like today Narsingha, tomorrow Varaha, day after tomorrow Kurma, not like that. You can worship him for your Ishta Devata. And he says, and the Shaligram Shila will reciprocate you, with you in that form. Same thing holds true for all deity worship. If we go to any temple, you go to Shiva, we can emote. We can express our emotions. Shiva will reciprocate with us. Today is an auspicious day. Tonight is Shivaratri. We can wish marriage anniversary for our mom and dad, Shiva and Parvati. So we have that very personal relationship with the Supreme Lord. And that can be tomorrow you go to Balaji temple, you can worship there. You go to any temple, you can worship. You go to Radha Madhav in Mayapur, you worship them, Radha Gopinath will be pleased. So we don't need to put our material understanding in this one, thinking worshipping them is this distancing me away from the other, not like that. So we need to be mindful there. But at the same time, simultaneous oneness and difference. There is a personal relationship also we have with Radha Gopinath. I think I shared this past time once in the class about Gauragovinda Maharaj sharing his pastime with Gopalji, deity, coming in his dream and telling, is Krishna Balram or is Radha Gopinath the same as me? Like that they ask. So there is a prema kalaha also between the deities. But in principle, we can understand worshipping one form. So if we can, let's say Ram Navami comes, we don't need to think, oh, today is Lord Ram, but we are worshippers of Krishna. No, Prabhupada says it doesn't work like that. You go satisfy one form, every form will get satisfied. You go worship one form. In this case, you can see from Gopakumar. Gopakumar goes to Vaikuntha and Vishnu is saying, I've been waiting for such a long time. Is it Vishnu who is talking or Krishna talking through Vishnu? Same way, Lord Ram is also saying, I've been waiting for you for such a long time. Now, he is not Ram Bhakta. But you can see that it's the same Lord. That's why understanding Supreme Lord, how he reciprocates, we can't get our head around. Narada Muni himself says, we can try to understand, but nobody can fully explain the nuances of Bhakti. Narada Muni himself says this to Gopakumar. So here you see he goes to Lord Ram, But Lord Ram tells him this. Oh, I've been waiting for you for such a long time. Oh, my dear friend, please don't show respect. We are friends. Like that he says. Now, normally, you never come across many friends of Lord Ram. Everyone is in Maryada Bhav only. But here, Lord Ram is telling, oh, my dear friend, and he sends Hanuman, stop him from paying obeisances. So then Hanuman stops him. And then right in front of his eyes, he sees Hanuman. 1 second, he jumps, fans Lord Ram. Next second, he comes in front of Lord Ram, massages his feet. Next second, he carries something and he sees like a magic. And at some time, Hanuman expands himself unlimitedly. He does everything simultaneously. He sees like that. Our humble prayer to Radha Gopinath is that we become like Hanumanji for Radha Gopinath. So we want to do everything. We want to clean, we want to preach, we want to build the temple, we want to raise funds, we want to cook, we want to serve devotees, we want to guide, everything we want to do. That's real humility. Not I am a very humble devotee, Prabhu. That's not something, humility is not something we should ever say in first person. First person is I. We can say in second person or third person. We can say you are humble. You can say he or she is humble. We can't say I am humble. One devotee once showed me a message from another devotee. He had criticized him. This devotee gave a class. That devotee had criticized him in the message. And finally, after saying everything, Hare Krishna, dear Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances, blah, blah, blah. And then everything, the whole content is there. And then at the bottom, he is actually writing, your humble servant. He showed me, Prabhu, there is nothing humble about this, Prabhu. So, we say humble, I am humble. As I said, humility is a term we should use only in second term or third term. As far as ourselves is concerned, we are simply insignificant and servant. We simply have to do what Radha Gopinath wants us to do. That's all. So, when Gopakumar sees this multivarious services of Hanuman, he becomes very excited to see. He develops that attraction to be of service to Lord Ram. He stays there in Ayodhya, but still his heart yearns to see that manifestation of his Ishta Devata's pastimes. His mind again goes through some disturbance. Lord Ram, knowing his heart, he tells him, oh my dear cowherd boy, now we may go to Dwaraka. True to Narada Muni's words. And that's how this chapter finishes. Finally, Sri Rama, whose heart is tender with unlimited compassion and who knows the mind of everyone in the world, consoled me with words of gentle affection. Go to Dwaraka and be happy, he ordered, and he sent me off at once together with the chief of the bears. Who's that? Jambavan ki Jai. So Jambavan takes him to Dwaraka. Why specifically Jambavan? Because Jambavan is father-in-law of Dwaraka Krishna. Jambavati is his daughter. He has given in marriage to Dwaraka Krishna. So Jambavan is used to going back and forth. So Lord Ram, knowing that, he sends Gopakumar with Dwaraka. That finishes part 2, Glories of Goloka, first book. So we have finished 2/3 of this. Normally in a movie, when the hero comes, they whistle, right? Like that whistling moment is coming now. So next book is fully about Krishna's Leela. So this whole thing is to again come to establish the position of Krishna's devotees, establish about the journey of a Jiva. And as we can see, Jiva, wherever he goes, whoever who is a devotee of Krishna, Krishna makes arrangement in different ways, be it material world in higher planetary system, or be it even in Buloka, where he goes to different holy places, or when he comes to the spiritual realm also, where he saw how Mother Parvati and Shiva, they blessed him, blessing him as he was on the way to Vaikuntha. He pays obeisances. Even though he was on celestial plane, he still pays obeisance. Shiva speaks sweet words and he sends him to Vaikuntha. So, and then he comes to Vaikuntha, we see Vishnu helping him. He goes to Lord Ram. Lord Ram orders him, go to Dwaraka and be happy. Now he goes to Dwaraka. Will he be happy? Yes and no. Devotees are very picky. Until he goes to Goloka Vrindavana, he won't be fully happy, and finally he'll go to Goloka Vrindavana. So this is how this section of Brihad Bhagavatamrita is narrated. Any questions or comments? Kritakonda Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
I've got 3 questions. So, one is when we say we can worship any form of the Lord, but and you get the benefit, but I heard like even with Krishna's form, Bal Krishna form or Laddu Gopal form, we should rather worship that aim for like Madhurya form and like Radha Krishna form. So how to reconcile this? And secondly, when you mentioned about one who hears even like very faint Harinam, then they get the benefit. But then how to reconcile it with Bhagavad Gita when Prabhupada mentions one takes a yogi, it's about like chapter 6, the yogi takes birth in like Suchinam and Srimatam. So, if you are not that pure enough. And third question is about like the Vaishnava etiquette. So, we say like, you may not be humble, but when you write to someone, you should like say YHS, like you're humble. So you'll get there, you may not be there. So should we write or not? Thank you.
Good question. Okay, first question, when we pray to Laddu Gopal, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So your question is, worshipping any form of the Lord is okay, but you said we are told that we can worship to Laddu Gopal only if you are in like Madhurya or like Vatsalya above. We can worship to Laddu Gopal, no problem at all. My Guru Maharaj says, when this question was asked to him, can we worship Laddu Gopal? 2 things we have to understand. If a person who is new to bhakti, if they say, can I worship Laddu Gopal? Worship. Can I worship a demigod? Worship. Can I worship Lord Karthik? Worship. No problem. Because some point you have to start. So you start. But as the person progresses, and if they come to a position where they ask, in this case, such a devotee asked that to my Guru Maharaj, initiated devotee, and she asked, Guru Maharaj, can we also get Bal Gopal deities and worship? This is the question. And my Guru Maharaj said, yes, you can worship, but understand, there are families who do that as part of their tradition and they know the mood. So if you go especially to Pushti Marg, Gujarat, they deal with Bala Gopal ji like a baby. Even in our temple you will see sometimes, they come and they say, oh, my Laddu Gopal was alone in my home, so I brought him here. Like that. They go to a beach, they take him there. Anywhere they go, they take him. My Guru Maharaj says, Laddu Gopal you can worship, but the commitment should be also strong from your side, because he is a baby, his demands are more. So, and you should be in a position to take that responsibility. If you look at Gujaratis, my God, the amount of dedication they have for worshipping. Even some people I have seen, even Marathis, they worship. There may be other parts of India also you may worship, but the whole point here is, it's not like I went to the shop and I bought a doll and I am keeping. It shouldn't be like that. We have to deal with him in a very personal way, and he is baby Gopal, and the mood, unless somebody's mood is like that to take care of a baby, then you can't worship him in his proper mood properly. Okay, in that sense, it is actually said you need to have Vatsalya Bhav. But if somebody is new and they say like, no, I feel attracted to this form, yes, this is also a form of the Lord, you can worship any form of the Lord, no problem at all. But if you are mature enough in your bhakti, wherein you are not worried just about yourself bhakti, but you are worried about what is good for them. Normally when we go to temple, people go to temple to for different reasons. Lal Govinda Prabhu, he said in one class, the mood of Vatsalya devotees is when they offer the arati and they bring the lamp. Normally we do this for purifying ourselves, correct? Oh, may my existence get purified, like that. But he said, I think he's from Gujarat background. He said their mood is, may anything negative that come for our Radha Krishna, may that all come to me, and may they be protected. This is their mood, he said. Now, how many of us will dare to offer that prayer? You understand? So, depends on what level of bhakti we are in. If you go to Pandharpur, this is in Maharashtra, there also you will see, for Vittal Rukmai, they do this. Again, they do this primarily because the whole idea there is, may anything negative, inauspicious, may that all come to me, and may you all be happy and peaceful. Now, devotee is blessing Vittal Rukmai like that. Mood. If a person's mood is like that, it takes that mood. Remember, Supreme Lord has taken a certain form to reciprocate with the mood. So, Krishna has taken a form of a baby to reciprocate the Vatsalya mood of his devotees. So, if you have that Vatsalya mood, go for it. If not, you see what mood you have and then you worship. So, even in ISKCON devotees, I know there are many from Pushti Marg, and they worship, like, you go to their homes, even in Sydney I'm talking, it's just unbelievable, like how much committed they are. Like, they have a separate kitchen for cooking only for deity. Like, home itself, they have a separate deity kitchen. Like, that's their standard. Like, almost temple standard you will see. And somebody dedicated, 3 times a day they'll cook. And they'll offer, they'll bathe the deity every single day. So it takes, my Guru Maharaj, that's why he says, like, it's commitment. If your mood is like that, you have the capacity to do, you should do. So that's if you talk about proper method, like for Gaur Nitai, we say, Harinam is enough. Prabhupada says, you just chant Hare Krishna, they'll be happy. Simple incense, chant Hare Krishna, they'll be happy. So this is the method of worship. Like that, you are having Laddu Gopal, method of worship is, you should be in a position to take care of him like your baby. If you can, why not? That's the reason why he is manifesting that form. Understand? So unless the devotee is not in a position to take that responsibility, there is, you may do aparad there. You can't actually bring Laddu Gopal and say, okay, Laddu Gopal, I'll just chant Hare Krishna for you. Laddu Gopal will be like, Gaur Nitai is there, why did you call me? So it depends. But if somebody new coming and they say, I felt attracted, let them start somewhere. No problem. If a person gets attracted that means that there is a Vatsalya Bhav. That can be we cannot, this is again one kind of assumption we go to. Vatsalya Bhav doesn't mean the person has to be elderly. I have seen little kids carrying Laddu Gopal as their baby. Okay, so I remember one little child, once she came, the parent was pushing the little baby, the girl, on a pram. She got off and she pulled something from under the pram. Guess what that is? Another baby pram. She puts the baby pram, it's like so small. In that one, Laddu Gopal. And she is pushing Laddu Gopal to come to temple. So it has got nothing to do with the age. It is to do with the mood. That's all. Some kids, they worship as part of their tradition because they have seen, grandparents do. They pick up the mood naturally like that. Okay, so anybody can worship, but in order to take a serious commitment, that's why it's more natural. He gels with that, basically. That's why. So that's the first question. Third question I'll come. Second question I forgot. You have to just remind me. Now the third question regarding etiquette is, yes, we can say, when we are actually as part of our mood, or at least to show the submissiveness, we can actually say, even if you are addressing someone, we can say, Prabhupada says you are simply insignificant. So you can say your insignificant servant, or you can say your servant. Your humble servant means it's a self-congratulatory word, basically. We can't call ourselves humble. Humility is something which people have to actually observe in us, and they have to say. It's not something we can claim that I'm very humble. Okay, when it comes to making an offering, let us say we are donating to our temple. How much ever we do, it's humble only, correct? So we can say, this is our humble offering. That is okay. You can qualify something that you are doing with the word humble. But when it comes to defining ourselves, we can't say I'm a very humble servant. That is, as I said, it's a quality which, given its weightage in our tradition, it's not something we can just award to ourselves, basically. So we have to We can address ourselves as like begging to remain your servant, or you can just say your servant or your insignificant servant. Humble servant, as I said, in terms of the usage, even in English, in a colloquial sense, it is used in a certain context, like, this is my humble suggestion. That is okay. You can qualify something of you, but we can't qualify ourselves with that word. That's what I'm saying. We use that more for in a negative connotation, basically. Oh, I'm a very, very humble servant. That's why I'm saying here you look at the usage of this word. The devotee is actually saying it, fully criticizing, and finally he's saying, you're humble servant, and there's nothing humble about it. So we don't need to, and yes, we are work in progress devotees only, so we don't need to call ourselves humble, because humility is in many ways pinnacle of our devotion, something which needs to be cultivated carefully. It's not something we can just claim ourselves like that. Okay, like even Prabhupada himself qualified, I'm Krishna's servant. And Prabhupada then says, actually, no, being Krishna's servant is a very elevated position. I'm servant of Krishna, like that. Okay, so devotees, if you see, even senior devotees, they just put your ever well-wisher, your friend, your servant and friend. Your humble servant is something somebody started, YHS. Yeah, and everyone is just following YHS, or your humble servant. As I said, like we can't self-qualify ourselves like that. What's the third question? Or second question in your order?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Second is, in the class when you said he faint, one who faintly hears the Harina.
Yes.
Goes back. So how do we reconcile it with with verse like 6.41 in Bhagavad Gita, which says, if you don't get purified, you will take birth in a wealthy family.
Yes, I get that.
Family.
Okay, yeah. So, what is our understanding of perfection? Are we practicing bhakti to go to Goloka Vrindavana? Bhakti can be practiced at so many different levels. I've said this so many times. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes to Udupi, there he asks the Tattvavadis, what's the goal of life? What's the means to go to goal of life? They say goal of life is to go to Vaikuntha, means to attain that goal of life is by practicing Varnashrama system. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chastises them. And he says, goal of life is to attain Krishna Prema. And the means to attain that goal is by devotional service. So they are also devotees. You can't say no to them, but their mood is, even you will come across many devotees, somehow I have to go back to Goloka. Going to Goloka is not such a great achievement. What if we really are sincere, we have such a big debt which we need to pay off, which we can't anyway, but we need to do. If we go to Goloka Vrindavan and Prabhupada asks us, so what did you do for me? What are we going to tell him? Are we going to tell him, Prabhupada, somehow I have made my way here? Prabhupada will still welcome us. Okay, come. Now, Prabhupada will be pleased. Are we going to just make it there? Or are we going to do as much as we can? My Guru Maharaj said when he had stroke, this is a lecture he gave after he recovered from stroke. That's the first class he is giving. And there he is actually revealing this. When he had stroke, he said, I saw Krishna in my dream during the whole unconscious period. And Krishna asked me, do you want to come now or you want to stay back? And then my Guru Maharaj says, I told Krishna, no, I have so many things to do. Prabhupada has actually told me so many things about Mayapur I have to do. I want to stay. Then Krishna says, all right. And my Guru Maharaj is saying, then I came to consciousness, and that's when I am realizing my body is paralyzed. I didn't realize that when I told to Krishna I want to stay back. That this is why Krishna is asking me. But still, if you ask him now, he didn't actually reduce his preaching. He just went to strong, going from strength to strength, still giving shelter to so many new disciples, building, and then he says, I want to see TOVP manifested. And now it's manifesting. Point is, how are we defining our win? Just somehow scrapping it through and going to Goloka Vrindavan. Is that a win? It is a win in one level. Are we satisfied with that? Are we okay with just taking care of ourselves and just going? Prabhupada will still be happy. Or are we going to do like what Mahabhagavats do, going through one painful situation after the other, trying to mitigate the pain and the distress in the heart of the Supreme Lord, which is to see him going through so much disturbance that, oh, my sons and daughters, they are actually struggling in this world. Will someone bring them to me? So we have to be very clear with defining our win. How are we calling ourselves a success? Many times, this is one thing I'm talking to the youth also. I think we need to have a class for devotees regarding goal setting, first of all, around health, around finances, around even how we define a win. Because there seems to be a lot of confusion there. And because of that, I see a lot of devotees, they are pulling so many different fast, different this, that to keep themselves busy, which is good. But it's like you are on a train is already going, bullet train going fast. And you think, no, I have time here, I want to do something, so let me also run inside the train. You are still going to reach at the same time. There are other ways how we can please the Lord. There are other ways how we can be useful to other people to please Srila Prabhupada. So anyway, coming back to the point. So if somebody's mood is, I'll just go to Goloka Vrindavana, that's one level of win. But if somebody's mood is simply to serve the mission of Srila Prabhupada, when they asked in one morning walk to Prabhupada, we don't even want to go to Goloka Vrindavana, we want to take birth again and again simply to serve you here. Prabhupada says, that is even greater. Prabhupada encourages. This is because this is the mood of Prabhupada. When Prabhupada goes to Western country 1965, Prabhupada is saying in one place, when you read that, you will get shocked. Prabhupada is saying, I've wasted 7 years in Vrindavan. I should have come to West early. Prabhupada is lamenting. Now, doesn't Prabhupada know that Vrindavan is actually non-different from spiritual world? Vrindavan is spiritual world. But how is Prabhupada defining his win? He is defining his win in terms of how much is he successful against the instruction which his guru gave. Which is, when you ever get money, print books and preach this in English language. But Prabhupada extended even further. Prabhupada didn't stop at the English language. He preached in so many languages. He printed books in so many languages also. He didn't stop with just printing books. He built a temple, educational institution, hospitals, whatnot. Temples, obviously, retreat center, thousands. Prabhupada defined his win very, very clearly. There is no need to run as we travel on a bullet train, even more faster inside. It's waste of time. What we should do is, along the way, at least when the train is stopping in the station, can we pull more people in? So we can give shelter to so many other people. So when it is given here, even the faintest one is actually capable of taking one to Goloka Vrindavana. Yes. Now that person may not actually go. If somebody asks me, what's the goal of your life? My goal of life is to be with Radha Gopinath all the time. Life after life, I always pray to Radha Gopinath. Radha Gopinath, please give me Narada Muni's body. Not Sahajya, not like that. Narada Muni's body means a body wherein we Sachidananda Vigraha, we don't need to eat, sleep, anything for our own. 24/7 we can just do their service. So this is how I define my win. Because Radha Gopinath is here. They have left Goloka Vrindavan to come here bless. What business do we have in Goloka Vrindavan? What business do we have even in Mayapur and Vrindavan? This is our Lord. And I want to be just born here over and over again. I was telling that to one devotee, one little girl. She was hearing and she said, yeah, I can be your mom. First you grow up, chant, then we'll think about it. Get lost, Little kids, they observe. So we have to be clear how we define our win in Krishna consciousness. Are we survivors or are we conquerors for Chaitanya? For survivors, even the faintest one will put them on track. Whether they go to Goloka Vrindavana in the same life or Krishna puts them in Suchinam Srimatam Gehe, from that point they actually go, that's up to them. But the point which we keep as the gauge for our progress is how much are we pleasing Prabhupada? How much are we pleasing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? In my humble opinion, now I'm becoming very conscious of the word. Our definition of bhakti starts and ends with what Prabhupada has given, period. Beyond this, Shastra may say anything. Prabhupada even brushed it aside, saying even Krishna may say anything. What did your Guru say? Our Guru was, is and will always be Prabhupada only. So Prabhupada's instructions, what is his mood? What did he want to do? As long as we keep doing that, we are already in Vaikuntha. As I said, if I die, my beg Radha Gopinath, please don't take me to Goloka Vrindavan. I want to be in North Sydney with you. Or wherever you go, I want to be with you. Always. So we have to be clear in how we define our win. I don't know if I've answered your question. So there's no contradiction there. It's about if somebody is just barely trying to survive, that alone is actually enough to take them back. That alone is enough to either take them back in the same life or in multiple lives, how Krishna puts them there. But when we say the person won't take birth again, we should not take it in a literal sense that the person doesn't have to, we should not take it in a literal sense just in terms of location. As I said, Prabhupada rated that even higher. If we simply want to fulfill the order of Guru without even worried about Goloka Vrindavan. In fact, there is a verse even in Nectar of Devotion, it's quoted, Kapila Muni's instructions, it's there, where he says, my devotees, they find so much ecstasy in serving me that they don't even care about coming to Vaikuntha. They don't even care about any form of liberation, which means going to spiritual world. In South India, there is a temple in Bhadrachalam of a famous Lord Ram, obviously, Kodandaram. But there is a devotee associated with that temple. He built the temple. His name is Ramadasu. Prabhupada narrates about his story in one Bhagavatam class. Now when he is about to leave his body, at that time Lord Ram comes and asks him, so come with me to Ayodhya. He says, no my Lord, I want to be present here and I want to serve your devotees as they come to worship you in Bhadrachalam. He says, Tatastu. Till date, he is still there. Of course, in a form we can't see, but he can see us. You see, my heroes are like this. Like that, I want to serve devotees who come and serve our Lord, Radha Gopinath. My hero is Ramadasu, Narada Muni, like that. So I would like to do like that for Radha Gopinath. So we can define each one of, based on our mood, we can define and then we serve the Supreme Lord that way. Did I answer you?
Yes, Prabhuji, very nicely. So thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Okay, it's over time. I just wanted to stretch today. As I said, Vaikuntha is finishing today. Mathura will start next week. We'll see you then. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Samaved Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.